Hi everyone, this is Dayu from EcommOps. Today I'm really excited to share some good news with you guys and that costs and delays seem to be stabilizing from China fulfillment. Now I know that I talked about not making any of these coronavirus updates, but I'm sure you guys can excuse me because I'm super excited to announce things are looking up and that they are starting to get better and hopefully stabilize from here. Now, this is up to date as of May 11, 2020. Things are always changing, especially during this pandemic. So for the most up-to-date information, please join our Facebook group, our EcommOps Facebook group. I'll be linking it below. And so if you want the most up-to-date information without waiting for videos, please go there and we'll have some up-to-date discussions around what's happening, both in terms of delays, cost changes, and also just overall operations and logistics. All right, so today we're going to talk about first what has changed recently that has, well, I guess previously led to a lot of cost increases and delays, but now has gotten better to make everything better and more stable. Second, we're going to talk about some of the details in the improvements, both on the cost side and the delay side. Third, we're going to talk about, and this is very important by the way, what has not changed because certain things have not gotten better. Not everything is perfect, or far from perfect actually, but not everything has improved. And then finally, I'm going to give just my personal educated opinions on what the future might hold in the short term for China fulfillment and logistics in general. All right, so what has actually changed recently that caused things to be better? And this is very important to talk about because if things just kind of seem to get better without a direct significant reason why, then I feel less confident that the stabilization will continue. But there are a couple of very significant things that has happened recently that first delayed things a lot in the past, but now have gotten a lot better. And because these have changed, I feel a lot better about things going stable going forward. On the demand side, there were two very significant reasons why cost increases and delays have been getting extremely bad for all China fulfillment and all freight services rather through, I'd say, all of April up until now. So the first one is the massive demand for medical PPEs, face masks, N95s, etc. By the way, this whole thing I want to make a YouTube video about because that whole thing in April was a huge mess. But anyways, there was a ton of volume ordered by countries, states on these critical PPEs that were going and clogging these freight lines at millions of units per day. California, for example, they actually struck a $1 billion deal with a Chinese mass producer company that was all getting shipped out in April. So, I mean, that's just one example of a deal, but there was a ton of volume that was really competing for the same space that all China fulfillment was using because they're all using these freight lines. Now, recently, as I'm sure you must know, things have been getting a lot better. Countries have been getting the PPEs that they need. And although there's still rather high demand, things have stabilized a lot. It's not just a mad rush as it was before. And, that was a huge demand shock that really no one expected. But again, that's stabilizing now because of the ever increasing demand for these products. Second, so this kind of goes back in time and why, what caused a lot of these delays and cost increases in the first place. So what happened was that Amazon, they actually, back in, I believe it was March, they actually paused any kind of intake for non-essential goods in their fulfillment centers. There are a lot of Amazon sellers that are actually based in China, and they had no way to get their goods in Amazon warehouses. So really the only option they had for relatively affordable and speedy delivery was actually using a lot of the same freight lines, like Yunexpress even, that you guys might use when fulfilling from China. So this also caused a massive demand for these services that normally wouldn't exist because usually these sellers just send it to the US or the EU warehouses, but Amazon was not accepting them. Now, unfortunately, this is actually bad news for these sellers in that in the last week or so, Amazon actually closed down a lot of these accounts. Reasons I'm not exactly sure, but if you work with Amazon as a seller, you know that sometimes they just really crack down on things and it's unreasonable. But most likely it was because the China freight lines, they were clogged up, so there were a lot of delays. So a lot of these seller accounts got suspended or closed because of that. So again, bad news for that industry, but that also means that a ton of that demand has also gone down, no longer clogging up the freight channels. And obviously that means a lot less demand to fight over when you are a dropshipper fulfilling from China using these same lines. And this is really one of the main reasons why I think that the stabilization coming up is not only temporary, but it'll be here to stay. Because again, all of the massive delays and cost increases in April, a lot of that was really caused by these two huge demand shocks. The law of supply demand doesn't really mean that high demand just means higher prices and slower everything. What really happens is that when there is some unexpected demand shock like these two, that's when everything breaks down. And that's what caused a lot of delays in April and cost increases in April. But I think that now, given these two pieces of news, I think that things will only get better from here. Now, the supply and capacity side has been improving as well. Our preferred carrier, Yunexpress, they actually started reserving their own dedicated freight planes starting in early May. Now, this is just a rough list of all the flights that they are booking, a lot to Europe, a lot to the US. And by the way, look at these. These are 747s, these are 777s. These are the largest wide body freight planes possible. So this is expanding their own volume by quite a bit, and especially because it's more dedicated, this generally has smoothed out the supply side issues a lot, whereas previously there was a huge backlog even on the China side where packages were waiting for a week or sometimes more to even get on the plane. Now, this is obviously just Yunexpress, so I can't really speak for other services, but at the very least, for Yunexpress, their supply side problems have more or less been fixed with these private lines. Now, one thing of note is that these private planes only go to the EU, UK, and US. So far, nothing for Australia or Canada, so those still might have some issues. And by the way, these private plane bookings are on top of the normal freight planes they normally share with others. So it's not really replacing that. It's on top of that, which means that things should only get better. Now, this is obviously just Yunexpress. We know the best. They tell us the most information, but I do know that other freight lines are increasingly getting better and better solutions, booking private flights. So generally speaking, I think Yunexpress is going to be recovering the fastest in this situation, but I just generally believe that all freight lines, Yanwen, Special Line, 4PX, CNE, everything should start getting better from here. All right, so this is probably what you guys all came for. So let's talk about the actual details of the improvements and actual numbers and real data. Again, this is accurate as of May 11, 2020. All right, so the first one that we're all very excited about, I'm sure you're excited about, is that on Monday, May 11th, Yunexpress announced their first price decrease since the coronavirus pandemic started. Now, since it started, there have been I can't even count actually, but there have been price increases on a weekly basis, sometimes even more throughout this period. And before this week, we had no idea when it was going to stabilize or even stop increasing. However, this Monday, they did decrease prices, not a huge amount, but at the very least, this is showing to us that most likely it's not going to continue to increase in the near future unless something disastrous goes wrong. So here are the details. All right, so I broke it up between the Yunexpress Express line service and the battery line service, which we actually usually call the regular service. Now, by the way, Yunexpress also has a more basic service, which we don't actually use because we think it's a bit less reliable, but it's still not bad. So, these two lines are the two lines that we use. So I'm not exactly sure what the details are for your other agents. And by the way, every agent is a little bit different and depends on what their relationship with Yunexpress. So their price differences might be a little bit different, and it might depend on the country as well. So, these are just approximate for what we see at least. All right, so on the Express side, the United States has a $2.8 decrease per kilogram, and other countries have a 70-cent decrease per kilogram. Now, on the battery line, again, which we call the regular line, we're seeing the United States decreasing by 2.8 per kilogram. Australia is massive. That's $6.4 decrease per kilogram. So if you have a heavier product, obviously that's a huge difference for you. And some other countries here, Ireland and Czech Republic, 2.8 decrease. Luxembourg and Portugal, 2.1 decrease. Belgium, 1.4 decrease, all per kilogram. Unfortunately, Canada and France are still in a poor situation right now, and no changes for those countries. Sorry, guys. And then all other countries on the Yunexpress battery or regular line, we're looking at roughly 70 cents decrease per kilogram. The increase is not massive, but the reason why we're excited is not just because of the magnitude of the increase itself, but I think that this is a sign that, hey, things might not come to normal anytime soon, but at the very least, it's a first sign that things will be stabilizing, and hopefully at least they won't be increasing in the near future. Now, one thing I will note though, that even though Yunexpress has decreased these prices for your suppliers, I wouldn't necessarily expect that you'll see price decreases right away. This is because, well, one, I think that some agents are probably just going to be not fully honest and just don't tell you about this and just, try to make money for themselves. But even honest agents, this is what we've been doing, at least, especially for lighter products. Honestly, the last couple of price increases, we've been trying to just absorb as much as possible, as long as we're not losing money on those. Because, we for one care about our clients. We want to make sure they can still push marketing profitably. So a lot of our clients, especially for lighter products, we have not really increased prices by quite as much, or if we have, we've been sharing some of that burden. And I think that many suppliers out there might have been doing the same. If we haven't increased your prices in the last 2 weeks or so, then it probably means that we've been absorbing your costs. For our own clients, especially if you have a heavier product, we'll definitely reach out and let you know this week how your prices are going to decrease, and we'll adjust it accordingly retroactively from this Monday on. And if you're working with another supplier, do reach out to kind of see if this price increase affects you or not. But again, a lot of suppliers have been running on extremely razor thin margins, absorbing some of these costs. So don't be too surprised if your supplier doesn't decrease your costs yet until the prices increase a lot more, or they tell you that, hey, we've been absorbing some of these costs, we can't really decrease your costs until the next time around. Now, on the shipping time side, I know that most of you probably know that through March and April, the delays have been getting really, really bad. And then they have been improving to most countries, I would say. Now, I'm just using UK as an example because the UK difference is quite significant. So on the left, we have samples of tracking numbers to the UK using express services, which, by the way, is normally 5 to 8 days or faster. Now, these were sent on April 12th. Mid-April to late April were some of the worst delays worldwide. Now, these were looking anywhere from 9 days to 15 to 18 days. Now, these are things that, again, usually take 5 to 8 days or shorter during normal periods. Now, fast forward in time, on the right, these are a batch of tracking numbers that were sent from 4:30. And then now we're looking at as fast as 5 days, but, up to 9, maybe 10, 11, or 12 days. So obviously, it's still not as fast as it could be normally, but for countries like the UK, a lot of EU countries, we're seeing huge differences in shipping speed and delays from the middle of April, when it was still the worst. Now, one thing I will note, and this I will talk about more in detail later, is that not every country has improved significantly. Most of the delay improvements have been on the China freight side because there's additional capacity, less demand, and Yunexpress, for example, has been using their own planes. However, this still doesn't solve for a lot of the other issues, such as local fulfillment delays and processing delays. Again, we'll talk about that in detail later. Now let's talk about what has not changed, at least in the short term. Now, this is very important as well because the situation is all extremely different around the world. In many places, it is getting better, but for some areas, it's still not improving at least to the same degree. So pay attention to this because I don't want you to be super excited and just let your customers know, for example, that everything is going to be better and change your shipping expectations for all these countries. As a general note, and I really want to emphasize this because I know a lot of countries are reopening. Just because they are reopening does not mean that logistics will immediately get better. And look, here's the reason why. Freight lines have always been running. Local fulfillment has always been running. And, a lot of clients and I think a lot of customers also think, oh, my country is reopening, so everything must be getting better. Everything must be getting faster, cheaper. That's really not the case because, look, logistics has been trying to grind it out. They've been running through this period. So just because your country is reopening doesn't magically mean that USPS or DHL is going to get so much better right away. Now, a country reopening and reopening a lot of its services, staffing up its local post more, that is a sign for future stabilization. But again, do not take just the fact that your local country has reopened recently or will be reopening soon doesn't mean that everything is going to be immediately better next week. One thing that is still a very important blocker in everything going on is that China passenger flights are still extremely limited in really the near foreseeable future. This is an article that a news article that was sent out actually on March 29th. So that was even before April, and this still holds. So China has been limiting foreign airlines to one flight per country per week. That's crazy, right? So generally speaking, the amount of passenger flights going in and out of China has been decreased by 80 to 90%, and that has not really improved. A lot of traditional services, especially ePacket, they normally depend on these passenger flights. So first of all, ePacket is completely broken right now, and it's still not getting fixed anytime soon. But you might ask, okay, well, how does this affect Yunexpress or 4PX because they use freight planes? Well, it's all supply and demand. Previously, all the volumes of dropshipping, a lot of that was using ePacket, right? If you especially want cheaper prices. But now all of that volume, if you want to continue to sell, I'm sure you might have experiences as well. You rush to get to using a freight line like Yunexpress or Yanwen, for example. So that just massively has increased the demand for all services, and capacity has not really been able to keep up even now. So I'd say that before you hear the news that passenger flights are starting to reopen, things are not going to get back to normal or anything close to it. Additionally, certain countries are still experiencing delays after packages arrive from China. Again, the great news before was more freeing up of freight capacity from China to the local country. But the problem is that there's still a lot of issues down the line that's going to affect fulfillment, especially for certain countries. So on the left, here are some issues that are still affecting all countries. And that's why even all countries, even the best ones, are not going to be completely back to normal. There's still going to be inefficiencies processing for all countries. So two main reasons. One is the time to sanitize incoming cargo, sanitize planes to avoid the further spread of the virus. And then second, just everyone has reduced capacity and inefficiencies along the local processing line caused by COVID-19. And then second, affecting all countries is that all countries are experiencing extremely high package volume. A lot of countries are saying that they're experiencing the same amount of volume right now as Q4 of 2019 during peak season. And this paired with just dramatically reduced capacities and inefficiencies, then that obviously is going to just make everything slower around the world. And then on the right, here's where we talk about some countries that have particularly bad delays that you should know about. Canada is experiencing massive backlogs in incoming customs. This is affecting literally everything. Freight lines, ePacket, whatever. Packages are just getting stuck in customs for like 15 to 20, sometimes 25 plus days. There's really no solution around this. You can't use any other services. There's an issue with the customs processing. So just just expect really long delays to Canada. We personally tell our clients, if you don't have to, just don't market to Canada or ship to Canada for now. The United States, also a big one. So USPS, FedEx, really all local carriers are extremely backlogged, leading to a lot of stuck packages in the US. I mean, previously you used to seeing a lot of stuck packages in China, but now they're in the US. But this also means that after a package has arrived in LA or New York or wherever your freight line ends at in the US, you're seeing really long delays from USPS or FedEx picking it up. You're seeing really long delays from them passing on to the local post office, and you're seeing very long delays from the processing generally and sending it to a customer's home. Now, in the US, it's highly variable actually, and delays are anywhere between 5 to 15 plus days. This really depends on the state. If you live in the US, you know this very well. Different states have very different policies. They're hit very differently. So some of the worst hit states, including California, including New York, and the Northeast, they're experiencing the long end of the delays because of just all the strain on their systems. That being said, I think that especially if your customer is living in one of these areas, they know very well their local systems are getting affected. So just make sure that they realize that, hey, your package is in the US, but USPS is severely impacted by COVID-19 delays. And then finally, Spain, France, Portugal, and some of the smaller EU countries, local services have have been and still are experiencing major disruptions in processing that's leading to maybe 10 to 15 day plus delays. And by the way, all these delays are on top of the normal shipping times in these regions because their local post offices just can't handle the issues. We don't really know exactly how well it's going to do in the future. And by the way, right now we can really only see from historical data and a snapshot in time right now how these delays look. Packages getting sent today, for example, they're going to be arriving in your country maybe 5 to 7 days from now. So by that time, maybe things are actually getting better. Or who knows, maybe things would get worse, right? But this is roughly what we see for now. So, things are definitely getting better. Things are stabilizing, but especially for these countries, make sure to set your customer expectations correctly. All right, so let's talk about my own educated opinion on what I think the near-term future holds for China fulfillment and e-com in general. Now, again, this is just my opinion, but I've been in the logistics business for a very long time. We have hundreds of clients. We do thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of orders per day. So we have a lot of experience here. I can't guarantee anything because it's hard to predict the future, especially during these tough times. But at the very least, these are just my general opinions on what I believe. So take it with a grain of salt for sure. And again, this is up to date as of May 11, 2020. All right, so in terms of prices and delays, they really should be stabilizing. Now, this is kind of a very simple chart where you see, the y-axis, let's just say it's prices, but also you can call it delays. And then today is 5/11/2020. Now, we saw the first decrease in prices today, and generally speaking, we've been seeing a lot better shipping times recently as well. Now, what does this look like in the future? I've always been telling everyone that really there's kind of three scenarios in the world, right? Things could be getting worse, things could be holding stable, and things could be getting better. Now, we still don't know exactly what's going to turn out in terms of stabilization, but I do think that for all the reasons we just talked about earlier, I don't think that things will get worse from here. Or if they do, maybe there's a random week with slightly worse delays, but I think that things should be either stable, as in holding stable and not changing from now, or steadily decreasing in terms of prices and the length of delays as well. Now, what does this mean for you? Now, what I don't want you to do is start thinking, oh, prices are starting to decrease. Therefore, I can expect that my prices are going to keep going lower and lower. Shipping is going to get faster and faster, and I can just account for that in my economics. If you're break even, or if you're losing money on the prices right now, do not market, do not try to sell it, do not hope that in the next couple of weeks it's going to keep going down and come back to normal. I don't think that is going to happen. It might happen, but it's too much risk. So for now, if the current prices and the current delays are okay for you to successfully run your business and definitely keep going or scale if you like, but if you're excited and kind of hoping for some massive changes down the line in the future and preparing your business accordingly, please do not do that. Again, join our group and I'll make sure to give you guys more frequent updates on how things are hopefully improving so you get more and more data as it comes up. Now, one thing that I want us all to be very, very mindful of and maybe even concerned about is that as countries start reopening their services, there is a very high chance of second outbreaks. And there is honestly a chance that the second outbreaks will just completely ruin all the progress that has been had and make it even worse than before. Now, obviously, I have no idea if this is going to happen, and I don't really think that there's going to be something disastrous to make things as bad as it was in April, but still, this is something that I want you to keep in mind. Keep an eye on the news, keep an eye on if second outbreaks start happening, because those might negatively impact all these trends as well. Now, that being said, e-commerce is booming. One of the reasons why there are so many delays is because demand has been crazy for this time of the year. Again, I said previously, the package volume has been similar to Q4 of 2019 during peak season. You never see that in April. People are staying at home, malls are closed, malls are continue to be closed probably, and even once the pandemic stabilizes, I think that more and more people are going to be wary of going outside. More and more people are going to be shopping online. So I really think that, one of the bright sides of this pandemic, if there's any, that it is going to drive e-commerce hugely for the rest of the year. And you know what, guys? Don't forget, these first 4 months, January through April, have just been terrible. Probably the worst months in the last 5 years for China fulfillment and dropshipping ever, really. Combination of Chinese New Year's, the outbreaks in China, the outbreaks around the world has really just made it a terrible time for the first 4 months of the year. But don't forget, guys, look, there's still so much time left in 2020, including the best times of the year for e-commerce. You got Q3 and you got the amazing Q4 coming. So don't forget, things are going to get better, and especially if things are going to continue to stabilize, I really believe that 2020 is going to be a huge year for e-commerce and a huge year for you guys who can actually take advantage of this situation. And finally, I wanted to wrap this up in a little bit of more of a personal and slightly emotional note. I always get kind of emotional thinking about this, is that this has been a really tough time for everyone. Its impact on human lives, I'm sure everyone has been touched by it negatively somehow, or someone who's been affected by it. So obviously this has been a very terrible time, and in this business, for you dropshippers, for your store owners, as much as I do that it has been a really tough time with all the delays and cost increases. We've seen how much it hurts everyone. It really hurts us more than anything else when we have to raise prices on a client simply because otherwise we lose money, and they come back and they tell us, hey Dayu, we really have to pause services because we just can't make money on these costs. Now, we're not even that worried about losing that business because we'll make it up somehow. But again, I really care about our clients. We really care about the whole industry, and it just really pains me to see you guys suffer. However, we are all in this together. Whether you are a current client of ours, whether you are a group member, whether you're a YouTube subscriber, we're working to try our best to provide you with the most efficient, fastest, most affordable services possible during these unique periods. And if you're not a client, we are trying our best to providing you with as much free updates and free content, videos as much as possible to give you guys the information and knowledge to get through this period. And the way that we think about our business is we're not just a supplier, we're not just a logistics provider, but we are your partners in this. Even if you're not a client, I promise you that I'm going to feed you guys as much information and updates as possible so that at least you can make the right decisions, whoever you're working with. So on that note, if you like what you see, please like this video, please subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications. After things stabilize, I'm really looking forward to actually start producing a lot more interesting content that's not coronavirus related. I have a whole list of topics that I want to talk about to help you understand operations and logistics and improve that side of the business more. Please also join our Facebook group. Link is below. We have a great community there, and I'm always active there, and that's where I provide a lot more up-to-date information and answer questions on operations and logistics. Also, we do run our own premium China fulfillment business, www.EcommOps.com. I'll link it on the bottom. Unfortunately, we have had amazing demand, so we have a waiting list to get quotes to make sure that our current clients get the best service possible. But still, we are clearing through the wait list. So if you're interested, make sure that you sign up below. Hope to hear from you, and again, hope that we work together and get through the rest of 2020 and make it a huge win. All right, everyone. Again, this is Dayu from EcommOps. Good luck. I hope for the best for you guys. Until next time, see you guys later.